Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at the story of Forest Fenn's treasure hunt, a real-life mystery that really captured the attention of a lot of people. And we're going to be using as our source material today excerpts from the Wondery podcast 48 Hours, The Fenn Treasure. So get ready for cryptic clues and dedicated searchers. And yeah, just a whole bunch of twists and turns as we kind of unpack this really fascinating story.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just grabs you right away. A hidden treasure, a poem with riddles, the Rocky Mountains. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, it really does sound like straight out of an adventure novel. So who was this Forest Fenn guy? And what made him decide to create this elaborate treasure hunt?
Well, Forrest Fenn was quite a character. He was a Vietnam fighter pilot. He was a successful art dealer,
Hmm.
and also a self-published author. And he claimed to have hidden this bronze chest filled with gold jewels and artifacts somewhere in the Rocky Mountains back in 2010. And the only guide he gave would-be treasure hunters was this 24-line poem that he put in his memoir.
Hold on, so a poem was the only map to this treasure.
Exactly. And it wasn't just any poem. It was filled with these cryptic verses that really sparked a ton of debate and interpretation. Like you had lines like, begin it where warm waters halt, or the end is ever drawing nigh. And it had people just poring over maps and going through the internet trying to find any clues they could. And by the way, we call each searcher's interpretation of the poem's clues that lead to a specific location. We call that a solve.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. It must have been insanely hard to try and decipher those clues. But why would Fenn even go to all this trouble to create this treasure hunt in the first place?
Well, you see, Fenn was kind of an enigma.
Yeah.
He said that he wanted to inspire people to get out and explore nature, to kind of rediscover that spirit of adventure, especially in a world that's becoming increasingly digital. But some people say that it was his way of cementing his own legacy, to create like a modern-day legend. And it's interesting to note that Fenn was no stranger to controversy. He had faced accusations of illegally obtaining artifacts for his gallery, and he was even investigated by the FBI at one point, though he was never charged with anything.
So this wasn't just some harmless game. There were some real complexities surrounding Fenn and his motivations. So what happened when the hunt actually started? Did people, jump on the bandwagon right away?
It was kind of a slow burn at first,
Yeah.
but then it quickly gained a lot of momentum. And the internet really played a huge role in that. You had online forums dedicated to the treasure hunt. They were popping up all over the place. And people from all walks of life got involved. You had seasoned adventurers, armchair detectives. All of them just became obsessed with cracking the code of Fenn's poem.
So there was a real community building around this whole thing, people connecting over the shared goal of finding the treasure.
Yeah.
What was it like for the people who were actually out there searching?
Well, you had folks like Sasha Dent, for example. She was a musician who went on over 300 searches. And get this, she actually found love along the way. It really goes to show that sometimes the journey can give you unexpected treasures.
It sounds like the hunt was about more than just finding the treasure itself. It was about connecting with nature, with other people, and maybe even discovering something about yourself along the way.
Absolutely. There are so many stories of people who formed lasting friendships, or
Yeah.
strengthened family bonds, or even just rediscovered their love for the outdoors. And they did it all thanks to this treasure hunt. Even Katya Luce, this singer-songwriter who had a pretty scary encounter with a cougar while she was searching, she said that she wouldn't trade the experience for the world.
Wow, a cougar encounter. So the thrill of the chase definitely came with some real dangers.
Yeah, that's right. And unfortunately, as the hunt got more popular, the risks just kept getting bigger. Not everyone who went looking for the treasure came home safe. And there's a pretty tragic side to this story that we need to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I find so fascinating about this whole thing. It's this story of adventure and community, but it's also got this side of obsession and sadly loss.
It's a very complex story, that's for sure. And it makes you think about the line between following a dream and kind of succumbing to the pull of something that could be dangerous, that potential for obsession. It's definitely a reminder that the wilderness can be beautiful, but it can also be really unforgiving. And sadly, at least 5 people died looking for Fenn's treasure.
Yeah, that's really sad. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a treasure hunt, but I guess it's important to remember those real dangers too.
Oh, absolutely. One of the first tragedies was Randy Bilyeu. He disappeared back in January of 2016. And thankfully, his dog Leo was found. But Randy's body wasn't recovered for months. And the treasure hunting community, they actually came together to try and find him, which really shows the strong bonds that this group had formed.
It's tragic that a community that's that close would have to go through a loss like that. Were there other incidents like that?
Sadly, yes.
Hmm.
In 2017, Jeff Murphy died after falling in Yellowstone National Park. He was looking for the treasure. And that same year, Paris Wallace drowned in the Rio Grande. And because of that, the New Mexico State Police Chief actually publicly asked Fenn to end the hunt. He was concerned for public safety.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty reasonable request considering what happened. How did Fenn respond to that?
Fenn he was pretty defiant. He argued that treasure hunting was no more dangerous than any other outdoor activity,
Mm.
and that people just needed to take responsibility for their own actions. He actually compared it to swimming pools.
Yeah.
He said that you wouldn't drain a swimming pool just because someone drowned in it.
That's a pretty controversial analogy. It sounds like he was putting the responsibility for safety completely on the searchers.
Yeah, it was definitely met with mixed reactions.
Mm.
Some people agreed with him, about personal liberty and responsibility. But others thought it was kind of reckless, especially considering people had already died. And unfortunately, more people did die. Eric Ashby drowned in the Arkansas River just a few months later. In 2020, Mike Sexton died from being exposed to the elements.
It's a lot to think about. I mean, obviously the allure of the treasure was really strong for some people, but you can't ignore those consequences. Did the hunt keep going even after all of that?
It did. And believe it or not, in June of 2020, just a few months before Fenn died, news broke that the treasure had been found.
Wow, what a turn of events. So after all this time, someone finally found it. Do we know who found it and where it was?
Well, the guy who found it, Jack Stuef, he wanted to stay anonymous at first. But then a lawsuit happened, and the Fenn family had to say who it was. Stuef was a medical student at the time, and he's decided not to tell anyone the exact location. He said he wants to protect the area, from a bunch of new treasure seekers,
Mm-hmm.
which of course just makes it even more mysterious.
Yeah, I can understand that. You wouldn't want people damaging the environment. But I bet it's frustrating for all those other searchers who never found it.
Oh, you can imagine. All those years spent trying to solve the clues, dealing with the elements, and then the treasure's found, and they still don't know where it was. Some people like Toby Eunice. He was a big name in the online treasure hunting world. He even said that maybe the treasure never even existed, or that maybe Fenn helped Stuef find it, so that the hunt would end, and so that Fenn and his family wouldn't be harassed anymore.
So even though the treasure's been found, the mystery's still going. That's quite a legacy for a treasure hunt.
It really gets you thinking, doesn't it? It's about so much more than just some gold. It's about adventure, the unknown community risk reward.
Yeah, it really does make you think about what motivates people. What would make someone risk their life for something like that?
Well, for some people, it really was about more than just the money. It was the challenge,
Mhm.
trying to solve this puzzle that Fenn had created with his poem. And for others, it was about being part of something, finding a community of people who loved adventure and exploration as much as they did.
So the hunt itself became kind of like its own treasure in a way.
Right. And Fenn himself actually talked about that a lot. He always said how important it was to experience nature, to get out of your comfort zone, and to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
He really believed that the hunt would enrich people's lives, even if they never actually found the treasure.
And it sounds like for some people it really did. I mean, we talked about Sasha finding love, and other people have said that they learned a lot about themselves during the hunt.
Yeah. But we can't forget that for some people, the hunt ended in tragedy. And Fenn's stance on personal responsibility, it doesn't really take away from the pain of those families who lost someone.
It's a tough thing to balance, encouraging adventure, but also knowing that there are risks.
It really is. And it's something people are still talking about, even now that the treasure's been found. Was Fenn reckless for starting the hunt? Should he be held responsible for what happened?
Those are really difficult questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers. But it's important to talk about it, to try and understand this story and what we can learn from it.
Definitely. The Fenn treasure hunt really shows us a lot about human nature, about our need for adventure, for meaning, for connection. It raises questions about personal responsibility, the power of wealth, and how sometimes it's hard to tell where the line is between a healthy pursuit and an obsession.
And it's a story that's still unfolding in a way, even though the treasure's been found.
That's right. People are still digging into it, trying to figure out how Jack Stuef solved the poem, maybe hoping to find a little bit of that magic for themselves.
It really shows you the power of a good mystery.
It does. And maybe that's the real treasure here, the reminder that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be solved, adventures to be had, and amazing things to discover both in the world and within ourselves.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. It's clear that the Fenn treasure hunt was a lot more than just a game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenon that got people thinking and talking and really searching for something. If you're interested in learning more about it, we highly recommend listening to the full 48 Hours, the Fenn Treasure podcast. It's a fascinating listen.
It really is.
And as you go about your day, maybe think about this. What treasures are you searching for in your own life? What adventures are out there waiting for you? And what lessons have you learned along the way? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.